Korean Zombie versus Yair Rodriguez. Now, what really happened in this fight? This was an absolute war, a back and forth fight where there wasn't too much of a pattern in the fight. There wasn't too much game planning going on. Of course, both these guys taking it on short notice. You would expect that, but they came out there and reacted to everything each other were doing on the go. But Yair seemed to come out there with an approach to box with Korean Zombie for the most part of the fight. They both stood toe-to-toe with each other the entire fight. Almost like a standoff with every exchange, and whenever the exchange ended, they came back to the center of the cage eventually and began the standoff again. Watching each other, who's going to throw first, whoever throws first and initiates, the other one reacts, and the exchange keeps going until separation occurs, and then they go back into the standoff again, see who's going to fire first. And after every exchange, and after the beginning of every standoff, one of them had a feeling of the opponent. For an example, in the first round, when Korean Zombie came in and threw a right leg kick, Yair came in and countered him with a very quick jab. So after that, Korean Zombie threw almost no leg kicks the entire fight because he saw what Yair was trying to do with that jab. It was a main weapon throughout the entire fight for Yair Rodriguez. So then you start to see Korean Zombie expecting the left hand of Yair, always looking to slip on the outside of it, always looking to parry the jab. So there was a lot of fixing mid-fight. And I believe the reason why Yair Rodriguez came into this fight and stood toe-to-toe with Korean Zombie is Korean Zombie has been known to march opponents down, pressure them, and find his flurry on the opponent. And against Jose Aldo, it was a very similar fight like this, where they're kind of standing in front of each other and seeing who's going to go first. And I believe that's what Yair was looking at, because Yair took the same approach and not allow himself to get gassed out by fighting Korean Zombie. If he keeps moving on the Korean Zombie, he's eventually going to get pressured heavily to the point where he's going to constantly be moving back. So he had to stand his ground in front of the Korean Zombie and just exchange, rely on his speed, rely on his more experienced striking background. And Yair came out with a very quick jab, and I'm very impressed of how far his boxing has come. That jab was his biggest weapon. But Korean Zombie also had a very effective jab on Yair Rodriguez, and there was a reason for that. Yair reacts a lot to the opponent. He doesn't like to initiate exchanges. He likes to react to them, use his movement, feel out the opponent, and then capitalize. But the reason why that jab was catching Yair, it was very hard for him to react to it, because Korean Zombie's jab is not telegraphed at all. There's very little tell that he's going to throw the jab. He just shoots it from his stance. He doesn't pump it, he doesn't lower his hand, he doesn't move his arm in any direction besides forward. Very similar to GSP. It's almost the analogy of when you see a car coming at you and you're facing the car, it's hard to tell its distance before it gets right in your face. It's a very similar thing with a jab. It's very hard to tell a distance when something gets in front of you and extends forward at you, straight. And that is why it was catching Yair Rodriguez. And every time he got caught by that jab, it looked like it hurt him. Knocked him off balance, really snapped his head back. And Yair's jab, although it was quicker, the actual extension is quicker than Korean Zombie's. The overall jab with the whole setup is not, because Yair Rodriguez was pumping his jab the entire time. He would pull it back and then forward, almost like a spring every single time, which makes it look like it's fast, but the time for it to eventually hit the target is a bit slower than Korean Zombie's. And that pump, him springing his jab back, is a huge tell for Korean Zombie, right? So if he's not going to counter Zombie whenever Zombie's throwing the leg kick, for instance, which was a big counter for Yair Rodriguez, he was looking for that right leg kick of Korean Zombie, and he would pump out the jab and catch him, because Zombie has nowhere to go. He's on one foot, unbalanced. It's going to be pretty hard for him to not get hit by that jab, especially because they're in the same stance. Now, if he was southpaw and he would throw the left leg kick, he could potentially get off the center line on the outside of the jab, but him being in the same stance as Yair Rodriguez, he's throwing the right leg kick, and he's going to get potentially on the inside of the jab, which is still a very risky place to be, and still a position where Yair Rodriguez can land that jab. But other than that, Yair had a hard time landing the jab on Korean Zombie. Besides, there's only one exception, and it actually happened in the third round. Now, the telegraph is the pump on Yair's jab when he brings it back before he throws it forward. But there is somewhat of an advantage to this if he follows up with another jab, if he puts into a combination. Because the first pump on the jab is going to tell Korean Zombie, okay, it's going to come, and he's able to parry it and move his head slightly out of the way. But if Yair continues that rhythm and follows with another jab without disrupting the rhythm, now it's kind of hard to tell when the second one's going to come, because the pump is in its rhythm. It's in its pattern. So as he throws it out and brings it back, it comes right out again. And this is how he was able to land on Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie tried to slip and move his head on the punch, but he didn't see this one fast enough because of that rhythm. And Yair Rodriguez is taking orthodox stance, southpaw stance. When he took the orthodox stance, he was looking for that jab a lot, and in the southpaw stance, he's looking for the left straight as well as the right side kick to the lead leg, which is an excellent tool against Korean Zombie because he likes to move forward. Zombie doesn't really do too well moving backwards. He's a very forward, heavy fighter. And when you can disrupt that and intercept him and pretty much halt his pressure with just a side kick, it hurts the Korean Zombie. And later in the fight, Korean Zombie was looking for that right straight on the southpaw Yair. And when Yair was taking the orthodox stance, he was looking for the jab a lot more. But this is later in the fight because in the first round, Korean Zombie had to feel out Yair Rodriguez. Very crafty, unorthodox fighter. He had to get a sense of what Yair is going to do out there. It's almost impossible to prepare for Yair Rodriguez. So when he was getting the feel out of the jab of Yair, and when he switches stances, and when he does switch stances, what does he do? And he found that Yair is staying in front of him the entire fight. Then he started utilizing his jab, knowing that Yair stays in front of him and doesn't really move until he could see a punch coming, and it's very hard to see that jab like I was saying before. So that was working on the orthodox Yair. And on the southpaw Yair, he's very heavy on his back foot because he's always looking for the side kick to the leg of Korean Zombie. And because he's looking for the side kick to the leg, he's putting all of his balance and weight on his back foot, which allows Korean Zombie to look for his right straight and bolt down with it and potentially look for a follow-up on the outside. But whenever he throws the right straight and catches Yair, Yair is always moving out. Whenever the right hand or a big punch from Korean Zombie is coming out there, Yair, if he gets hit or if he dodges the punch, he is being elusive. He's moving out. So it's not like he's staying in that space and plotting the entire time. He's using his elusiveness pretty much as a reinforcement to get away from everything. And when someone's putting their weight on their back foot like that, what do they naturally do when someone's pressuring them or moving forward on them? They like to lean back. They have all that weight in the back foot, so they lean over it to get away from punches. But someone who has a style like Korean Zombie, where if they move forward, they are going to continuously move forward on you and keep that momentum going the entire fight. Yair Rodriguez, what he resorted to was he kept switching stances backwards. Because when you're leaning back, it's hard to bring your rear foot back behind you again, especially when someone's moving in on you with powerful strikes. So the natural instinct is to switch stances backward, move your front leg back, and get back into a longer stance where you don't have that initial weight on your back foot. But when you're doing that, it could be a much slower and riskier movement to move back on, which is why sometimes Korean Zombie was landing on Yair Rodriguez. And the right straight on a southpaw fighter from an orthodox fighter is actually a very good weapon because you could step on the outside. When you step on the outside, you have a clear line down the middle for your right straight, and you also get off the center line yourself, which makes it harder for the southpaw fighter to land with their power hand and power kick, right? Which is going to be their left side. So you're moving away from their left side and getting on the outside of their right side. And you have a clear shot down the middle. And you can also chase on the outside foot as well. Now there's something interesting that Yair did. Happened multiple times in the fight, where when Korean Zombie was able to pressure and move forward aggressively, Yair would constantly move back, right? And what he would do is, whenever he took about a third step back, he would get in a long stance and he would duck and throw an elbow. First time he did it, he threw a spinning back elbow. Over the top though. Second time he did it, he threw an up elbow. And then the third time he did it was in the knockout where he threw a reverse upward back elbow. I don't know what you would call it. It's a very interesting thing to see Yair do. Did it multiple times in the fight until he eventually caught Korean Zombie. Because Korean Zombie, when he moves forward, he doesn't really stop moving forward. It's almost like a juggernaut kind of thing, where once he goes, it's very hard to stop him because he usually goes one direction, right? If you can get off that center line, then he has to redirect and stop himself. But if you're on that line and he's charging down at you, he's going to keep going, which got him caught by the spinning back elbow, almost got him caught by the up elbow, and then got him knocked out. Because naturally, when you run into someone and they duck, you almost lean over them because you don't want to trip over them or stumble over them, and you try to stop yourself. That's what happened with the spinning back elbow and the knockout. Now let's get to some of the moments of the fight here. And then we move here, and you see they're in opposite stances. Yair is in the southpaw stance, and right before this, and the whole fight, he was throwing that lead side kick to the knee of the Korean Zombie, and he actually threw it a couple seconds before this sequence. He goes and lifts his right leg, makes it look like he's going to throw another lead side kick. And what does Korean Zombie do? He leans back a little bit, but then he brings his left leg back. Doesn't want to get hit by the side kick of Yair. But Yair is using this opportunity to move forward on the Korean Zombie and cover distance. So he goes and hops with his left foot and then steps forward with his right foot. And you can see how close he got to Korean Zombie. Their lead feet are almost crossing each other. You can consider this close for even boxing range sometimes. And Korean Zombie's reaction was pretty late. I actually think that Yair could have landed the lead sidekick if he wanted to, but he's trying to set up for something a lot more devastating. So he steps on the inside of Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie is stepping back, brings that lead leg back, and ducks to his left as he does it. He sees the left leg of Yair. He sees the left knee come up. So he probably thought the left knee was going to come up and try to land on him, but Yair is throwing a switch flying knee and comes up with the other knee and lands on the Korean Zombie. Just nicks him. And I think this is the blow that cut the Korean Zombie. And then notice right away where Yair is moving. Where does he step with his left foot? He lands and then he steps toward his left. He steps forward and slightly to his left. He's filling in that space on the right side of Korean Zombie, so this here could have got Korean Zombie to move out to his left and get intercepted by the right high kick, but there was a problem here. Korean Zombie had space behind him when Yair went for the right high kick. Korean Zombie still had enough distance to move back, away from the kick, and he turns his head with it as well. This was a potential fight-ending combination. If only he was able to cover a little bit more distance forward with the flying knee and get Korean Zombie closer to the cage. And you can see where Yair ended up. Right, he moved that far to his left, filling in that space. Very creative by Yair Rodriguez. And then we move here toward the end of the third round, and what you see is they're both in opposite stances. Yair takes the southpaw stance and tries to get his foot on the outside to align the left straight down the middle, as Korean Zombie's pawing out at the lead hand of Yair, so he's forcing out the left hand of Yair by trapping his lead hand. Now he's expecting it, right? And Yair goes out and throws it. This is what Conor McGregor does to everybody. He forces people to throw their right hand and is able to counter them for the most part. So Korean Zombie sees the left hand coming, he slips on the outside of it, and he counters him with a left hook while he's switching stances backwards. There's a lot of switching stances in this fight as they're moving. It's not the best option to do because you're losing your stance and you have a period where you're unbalanced mid-switching. So it's best to use the basic fundamental footwork of pushing off your lead foot backwards to keep your stance and also have power in every position. Left hook wasn't that powerful from Korean Zombie because he already had his left hand out there. He had no leverage in his punch. He kind of just forced it on Yair's chin, and he's also switching backwards as he does this. So he doesn't have any ground under him. So they both switch. Yair gets into his orthodox stance and Korean Zombie gets to his southpaw stance. Korean Zombie's looking for his counter right hook, and Yair, switching it up, being creative, is setting up a right high kick. And Korean Zombie is leaning to his left. He's leaning right into the high kick, and he does not see it coming at all. And what I think he's seeing is he sees the right hand of Yair lingering out there, so he probably thought the right hand was trying to land on him, but is there to create balance for his right high kick. And he almost lands it completely flush on Korean Zombie. He just didn't have the rotation enough to swing his hips into it a lot more. This could also be due to him getting caught by the right wrist of Korean Zombie, which is knocking him off balance a little bit. And is knocking him off balance in the other direction, away from where his kick is trying to go. So his kick, it landed but it didn't follow through at all, which still can knock anybody out. And it just shows Korean Zombie's chin. And then we move to the fourth round, and what you see is they're both in the same stance this time in their standoff. Korean Zombie's leaning to his right. He's expecting the left hand of Yair to come out, as he usually does, just throw out that jab on Korean Zombie when they're in the same stance. And he also has his right hand up, always looking to parry the jab of Yair, after all the experience he has seeing Yair's jab in the same situation. And Yair gives him the look. He goes and fakes like he was going to throw a jab. He feints the jab, and you can see Korean Zombie moves his head back a little bit and moves his right hand forward, looking to parry the shot, and he also moves his head to the left. Now this is a very tricky situation for Korean Zombie. There isn't too much he can do here defensively if Yair goes and throws out that right hand, right? Because he's leaning into it. The only way he could really lean or try to dodge the punch, he could potentially try to go under it, or he can lean to his right. And leaning to his right from this position is very risky to get away from a right hand, because it could still find its target, especially if Yair goes and throws it across on the inside. Or Yair could fake the jab and then find the right hand as Korean Zombie moves his head to the right. And actually the fake jab at this point would give Korean Zombie more of a reason to move his head to the right than if he's gonna see a potential right hand. And through that, Yair can land the right straight and catch Korean Zombie clean. These are very dangerous options for Korean Zombie, because he's already leaning to his left. He already extended himself, and he's leaning toward the right hand of Yair, right? If he tries to lean back, his stance is so narrow, he is going to have to bring his right foot back before he does it. Or he could switch stances backwards as well, but that takes up time. Is he going to be able to do that before Yair can set up or throw out that right straight? Tricky situation here. But what does Yair do? He goes and throws a jab again. So Korean Zombie was expecting it in the first place. Yair goes and fakes it. Fakes like he's going to throw it. It gets Korean Zombie to react to it, and now Korean Zombie's leaning away from the left hand of Yair, as well as having his right hand up ready to parry it. I think this was a mistake for Yair to throw out the left hand. And what do you know, Korean Zombie was ready for it. The whole time. He was expecting the left hand the whole time. He goes and parries it, and then moves his head on the outside of the punch, and counters them with a left hook over the top. And you can see it's palm facing down, and it's a long left hook as well. Clean shot by Korean Zombie. And like I said, Yair, I believe, should have thrown out the right hand. There was a very limited amount of options for Korean Zombie to defend the right hand on Yair. Now, there's two moments where pretty much the same thing happened. And again, Yair switching stances backwards is getting him caught. And what Korean Zombie does in both of them are, he moves and darts forward with that right straight. And he's kind of moving past Yair. He's not moving directly into him. He's moving past him, and then he redirects back at Yair. So he goes and throws that right straight, and Yair both times is able to deflect it with his lead arm as he puts it forward. So it glances off the arm of Yair, and he moves past him. Now they're perpendicular to each other, and Yair, in the first time this happened, he goes and throws some short right hands, almost like right uppercuts in a way, at Korean Zombie. Not the most powerful shots, but Korean Zombie's very close into him, and Yair is almost in a parallel stance. Now he's kind of forced to switch his stance. Well, first he brings his left foot back into a narrow stance, and then he brings his right foot back into a long stance, and Korean Zombie's redirecting from his darting punch. And he's looking for a left hook over the top, and Yair, as he's switching stances backwards, he goes and throws a right hand. There's almost no power in the punch, and Korean Zombie lands a flush left hook over the top from that redirection. He has balance, right? He has ground under him to kick off of for these punches. And in the other scenario, Korean Zombie darts with that right straight, gets perpendicular with Yair, but Yair fixes position this time a little bit better. As soon as Korean Zombie is stopping his momentum forward, Yair is already moving his right foot back, right? So the fact that Korean Zombie is darting past Yair, he's getting Yair in a parallel stance. And his own stance is going to be very sideways to Yair's. So this time Yair brings his right foot back, and he goes and throws his right hand again, and he just misses. Korean Zombie's naturally leaning to his left from the momentum of the punch, and Yair just misses the punch. There is a huge opening right here, right over the top of Yair's punch as he drops it afterward. Korean Zombie again looking for his left hand after he darts with the right hand and switches stances. He's always looking for his power punch, and lands it clean. And then we look at the finish. Now it's crazy to think about this finish because it's something we've never really seen before in MMA. But what you see is the last 10 seconds of the fight, they're both hyped up to finish the fight strong. The fans are cheering. Yair eggs on Korean Zombie as well. They're, getting energetic for this last 10 seconds. And Korean Zombie's looking to go forward. No matter what it is, just finish this fight strong the best way he does it. And that is with on-forward pressure and sometimes recklessness. So he goes forward and throws a jab. Now there's an alarming thing here. And this tells me Korean Zombie's not looking to be technical at this last part of the fight. He's just looking to do whatever just to throw punches and finish the fight strong. This is something he pretty much never did in the entire fight. When he threw his jab, he never moved his right foot forward before his left foot. He always moved correctly with his jab. He pushed off his back foot, which is his right foot, and moved forward with his lead foot as he throws the jab. He did the opposite. He moved his right foot forward first, and then his left foot forward. Telling me he is not regarding technique here at all. He's being very reckless. So he gallops forward. That's what I call this when people do that. When they switch up their feet on their jab or a punch they're throwing and moving oppositely from quote-unquote correct jab. So he gallops forward, just like horses do, right? They land with their back foot first and then their front legs. And he looks to throw his right hand. And Yair, as he always does, he leans back with his orthodox stance, with his long stance, and as soon as he extends too much backwards, he switches stances. So Korean Zombie shows him the right hand, and that's when Yair switches back. And every time Korean Zombie potentially tries to throw out that right hand, he switches stances himself and throws a long left hand as Yair quickly switched back into his orthodox stance. And he does here very similar to what he did with his spinning back elbow. When he landed with his right foot back far, that's when he set it up. He does it here again. He lands pretty far with his right leg, which tells you he's going to be planting. He's going to be planting for something. But what he was planting for was something no one expected. So Korean Zombie, as we all know, when he throws his power shot, he switches stances forward into the other position. And there's a lot of momentum from Korean Zombie moving forward. So he's looking to switch back into his orthodox stance. And the fact that Yair Rodriguez ducked down, really far down, Korean Zombie also leaned forward to not run into Yair in that way, not flip over him or tumble on top of him. So what he does is he tries to stop himself from moving forward and leans forward as he does it. It's a natural reaction, focusing on Yair, the fact that he's so far down. Now there's an elbow coming up at Korean Zombie. He never expected this shot. He never even saw it coming. Knocks him out cold. Those are the shots that knock you out. And you can actually see how much Yair cocked his elbow forward before he brought it back to throw it. I mean, he was smothering his face with his arm before he threw this. He's looking to throw this elbow back hard. This is not just, he just threw something. No, he brought it forward and then threw it back. He meant to throw this shot. So that's the breakdown, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. For my next video, it's going to be my podcast. It's going to come out tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. And then it's going to be my prediction video for this weekend's UFC, so be on the lookout for those. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.